Hi everyone, my name's Diabutor, and today I'm going to give you a comprehensive walkthrough of Ranni's questline. I'm going to show you all the interactions you can have with Ranni and her followers, and I'm going to show you how to get through the questline as smoothly as possible. Our very first interaction with Ranni is in Limgrave. After you talk to Melina at the Gatefront Ruins and receive the special seed ring to summon Torrent, you can fast travel back to the Church of Elleh where you met Kael, and Ranni will be there to talk to you. She has a few lines of dialogue and you have to talk to her twice to get through the whole thing. She'll give you the Spirit Calling Bell and the Lone Wolf Ashes, and you now have the ability to summon Spirit Ashes when you see the Rebirth Monument icon on the left side of your screen. It looks like a little blue tombstone thing. If you don't get it from Ranni here, then you can get it from the Twin Maiden Husks later on when you go to the Round Table Hold. After that, we're going to the Mistwood. This spot right here is where you can get the map for this area. I'm in New Game Plus, so I already have the map, so I'm going to go directly from the Site of Grace to the ruins. But if you grab the map, you can see the ruins in the center of the Mistwood that's got like little lines where the structure is. And so you can either just head directly to it, or you can follow the road through the Mistwood, and it takes you directly to the front of the ruins, which you're going to see here in a second. So here's the road. To my left would have been the map marker, and it leads directly to the ruins right here. So on this tower, we'll hear Blaidd howling. We have no way to interact with him at the moment, though technically you could kill him here if you want to, but you clearly don't want to because you're doing Ranni's questline. So we go back to Elleh, and when we talk to him, we can ask him about the howling in the Mistwood.
I know. Next time you hear the wolves howl, make this signal right under the source. Don't fret.
So he'll give you the finger snap gesture. In case you're not aware, in the pause menu on the right side, you can go to your gestures, hit Y to select one of the quick gestures, and then from the big gestures menu, you can either hit X to test it immediately, or you can select it and put it on the hot menu, and then use it from there with A. So anyway, we go back to the Mistwood, right underneath the tower, use the finger snap. Blaidd drops down, and we see that he's like 10 feet tall. So talk to Blaidd, and he'll tell you that he's in the area looking for a trader named Darriwil. He asks you to come and find him and tell him about Darriwil if you find him. I don't think you actually can come back and talk to Blaidd and tell him that you found Darriwil, but when we go find him, we'll be able to summon Blaidd to help us with the fight. So now let's go find Darriwil. Directly south from the Mistwood Ruins, if you look on the map, you'll see there's like a tree line where the trees end and like, you know, like empty plain or whatever begins. On the left side of that where the cliff is, there's a spirit string that you can use to jump up there. So I always use that tree line as a little guide to find this thing more easily. But jump up that, it takes you up to this little cliff, and then from here we're going to follow the road down to the Forlorn Hound Everjail. Just north of the Everjail is a Site of Grace that we're going to grab, but we're actually going to make a quick detour. So Darriwil is a Bloodhound Knight, and the things that they're weak to are Pierce and I think Lightning. So in case you don't have a piercing weapon, you can stop by this camp on these ruins here, and it has the Great Epee Heavy Thrusting Sword, which is a good source of pierce damage. I also like it a lot because it starts with Impaling Thrust, which does a lot of poise damage, and it gets pretty good range, so it's good for hitting Darriwil because he likes to dodge and jump around a lot. You could put a different Ash of War on this thing if you want. Like I said, I like Impaling Thrust, which you can get from War Master Bernal at the War Master Shack up in Stormveil. I also like Endure, which you also get from Bernal, which I'm going to show in a second here. So here's where we're at, and then if you head up to the gate front, follow the road to the north, up to the Stormhill Shack, and then directly to the east of that, you see the War Master Shack in a little clearing in the woods there. So talk to Bernal, he will sell you a bunch of different Ashes of War. I like Impaling Thrust. You can also get Endure, so if you're having trouble dodging attacks, you can use Endure to tank through them and then just hit while the enemy is attacking you, which is especially good with a piercing weapon because then you get counter-attack damage. Also, from the War Master Shack, if you follow the road up onto this little cliff here, on that spot right there, there's a knight riding around on a horse, and if you kill him, he drops the Golden Vow Ash of War, which allows you to buff yourself and your allies. So as you probably noticed, inside the Everjail you can summon Blaidd. So the bad guy won't actually spawn until you leave that circle. So you can summon Blaidd and then use your buffs or whatever, and then step out of the circle to start the fight. You can pretty much just let Blaidd kill this guy for you if you want. He does good damage, and you know, he's Blaidd. He's a fucking badass. He also has a colossal sword, so he does a ton of poise damage, which is really good if you use Impaling Thrust. You keep getting poise breaks like that, and Darriwil just doesn't have a chance, really. Once the fight's over, you're rewarded with the Bloodhound's Fang, which is just a really good curved greatsword, and afterwards you automatically leave the Everjail, and Blaidd is right nearby, so you can talk to him for your reward. It's a Somber Smithing Stone grade 2, and if you get a Somber Smithing Stone 1, you can use them to upgrade that Bloodhound's Fang, and it's a very solid weapon, really great for pretty much any point in the game, but especially the early game if you have it at a level 2. So if you talk to Blaidd again, he tells you if you ever meet a big guy named E.G. to tell him Blaidd sent you, so that's one of Ranni's other guys. So now we're going to talk about an optional questline related to Ranni. So for this, I headed into Stormveil Castle. There's an NPC here named Nepheli Loux who we need to talk to, and she becomes relevant a little bit later on when you talk to one of Ranni's cronies. So as you can see here, I just killed Margit, and then I'm just running through Stormveil real quick. I'm getting owned a lot, but, you know, it's not that bad. If you add Endure, it actually makes running through this way easier, so keep that in mind if you talk to Bernal at the Warmaster's Shack. So to get to Nepheli, head through Stormveil, and then after the courtyard, you'll find this road that takes you up to Godric, and there's a little side room here that has Nepheli in it. So here's a secluded cell right before Godric. You can see on the map there's like that road that leads from Nepheli to Godric. If you're coming from the site of Grace, there's a troll and a couple soldiers you gotta deal with, but you can just run past them. So we're gonna talk to Nepheli just to start her questline. And then afterwards, we're gonna kill Godric. You can summon Nepheli for this fight if you want, but killing Godric is necessary for Nepheli's questline. Afterwards, you can meet her in the Round Table Hold. She'll give you the Arsenal Charm and then tell you, hey, I'll probably see you around. And so now, in order to continue her questline, we need to go to Liurnia of the Lakes. So after killing Godric, you can go through the Stormveil throne room and come out the rear exit, and that takes you to Liurnia. Follow the road to the west, and then once you come down to the actual lake, you just keep heading west until you get underneath this enormous plateau thing, whatever you want to call this. And we're heading up to the village of the Albinaurics, so head through the Poison Swamp. Right up underneath the bridge, you can find Nepheli. She's upset because she did a little bit too much doom scrolling on Twitter. Talk to her a few times and she'll tell you that she wants to kill the bad guy in this area. After that, you can head through the village and go across the bridge, and you'll come to this little courtyard area thing. You can summon Nepheli if you want. You don't have to, unlike for Blaidd. You don't have to summon her to progress your questline. You just have to kill the boss, so I didn't summon her. So in this area, there's a couple dogs on the right side down there that you just saw I was locking onto, and there's another one behind this big tree. You can't see him from here, but there is a dog back there, and when you attack the Omen Killer, which is the boss, that dog will come out and attack you. So before attacking the Omen Killer, I like to drop down on the side here. There's a rune arc. If you have a Godric's Great Rune, you can use that to activate it. Here, I snuck up on the dogs and then attacked them in melee combat. And so that ended up aggroing both of them at once, which ended up being problematic, and it also drew the Omen Killer over, and that started the boss fight earlier than I wanted to. If you have throwing daggers that you can buy from Kale, then you can attack the dogs one at a time from a distance and lure them over to you one at a time, and that makes dealing with them a lot easier. But anyway, so just fight the Omen Killer. I'm on New Game Plus 2 here, so I'm getting owned a little bit too much. I also forgot to upgrade the grade of pay before I came here, so I have a +0 a pay. That's part of the reason why I'm getting owned. The other reason is just because I'm bad, but you know, this isn't that hard of a boss, especially if you summon Nepheli. So after this, you can go back to the Round Table Hold and talk to Nepheli there if you want to. That's not relevant to Ranni's questline right now, so I didn't do that, but you have the option if you want. We just need her to be at the Round Table Hold in despair to be able to progress the questline that we're setting up for later. So with that done, I'm going to head over to this gazebo in Liurnia. You saw there's a second one in the woods to the right of it. That has a bunch of smithing stone 3s that you can use to upgrade your weapons. So grab that if you want. But you see from here, so that's where the main Academy Gate entrance is, or the South Academy Gate entrance is. I recommend you grab that because we're going to need to kill Renala later to finish Ranni's questline. I didn't do that right now, but anyway, we're going to take this Waygate and the western gazebo. That takes us over to the King's Realm Ruins, which leads up to Caria Manor, where Ranni is. It also drops you right next to the map marker for this side of Liurnia, so that's good. There's an illusory wall here, so attack that, and then you can come through and talk to Eg. So this is the big guy that Blaidd was talking about earlier. Talk to him a couple times to open up his merchant menu, and then choose the option about be careful or whatever it says. And he'll tell you to be careful going up to Caria Manor. After that's done, you can talk to him about Blaidd.
Actually, quite a rare occurrence. Perhaps he's at any rate. I've something else that might suit you.
So now when you open his shop, you'll see he sells these 4 Somber Smithing Stones by default, so this is great if you want to upgrade your Bloodhound's Fang or any other Somber weapon. And after you tell him that Blaidd sent you, he will also sell you the Carian Filigreed Crest, which is a nice talisman to have. So we're going to head up to the manor. There's going to be these raining magic arrows, whatever. You can just strafe to the side and dodge them really easily. Grab the Set of Grace, because Caria Manor is filled with giant hands. They're going to kick your ass. And I just want to make a quick note. On the right side here, if you head up to the room by that light over there, there's a crafting book that gives you the recipe for freezing pots, which are very nice to have. So anyway, we're going to run through the manor. You can run past all the hands. They're weak to fire if they're giving you a hard time. Just be careful not to get grabbed by them. There's also a couple other things I want to point out up here after the chapel. So if we were to take that left path and go across that bridge over there, see that building? You can jump down to the roof and then go inside the building, and you can get the Sword of Night and Flame, which is a nice sword to have. And then over here on the right side, that's a Virgin Abductor over there. So you can get onto the battlements over here. You'll see in a second. You can drop down onto this little wooden thing here, and that takes you onto the battlements. And then after that Virgin Abductor is a whip called the Urumi, which is a very nice whip if you're into whips. There's another Grace here. There's a couple wolves we gotta run past. They're pretty simple, just run past them. A couple sorcerers, a troll knight, a couple pages, whatever. So in this courtyard up here, there's a boss, Royal Knight Loretta. So since she's a ghost, she's immune to all status effects, but she is weak to pierce damage and lightning damage, and she is especially weak to lightning damage if you keep her in the water in this pool in the center. So if you have access to lightning damage, that's very effective against her. But her attacks are pretty simple to dodge. If you're getting stunned by her a lot, again, I recommend Endure. After that, we can come out the north entrance of the Royal Moongazing Grounds, and we end up at the Three Sisters. So we want to go to the middle sister, which is Ranni's Rise. Real quick, I just want to show you here, because this is going to be important for one of the side quests later on. In the part of the ruins closest to Ranni's Rise, there's a illusory floor that you just saw, and that takes you down into a cellar that we're going to need to go to later. So, go up into Ranni's Rise, talk to Ranni. I like to do this with the elevator, so I start it down, and then I like to drop down here to the bottom floor. So, after talking to Ranni, we need to talk to her 3 guys, Seluvis, Blaidd, and Eg. So, this just takes us down to the bottom floor more quickly so that we can talk to Seluvis, then Blaidd, then Eg, and then we can go back up to Ranni. She's going to take a nap. So she wants you to go with Blaidd to see if you can find a way to the Eternal City of Nokron. We'll do that in a minute. Right now, we're going to work on that side quest a little bit more. So from Ranni's Rise, I like to jump down onto the roof here. Then you can jump across to this, and just to show you real quick, we're going to the South Rise here, so that's Seluvis' Rise. And then from this roof, I'm not sure if that's a safe fall or not, but you can drop down onto these rocks back here, and then just follow the cliff over to Seluvis. So when we talked to Seluvis just a minute ago, he suggested we come over to his Rise and talk to him. But it turns out that he's a dick. So he wants us to give a potion to Nepheli Loux. That's why we set her up earlier. So there are actually 3 different things that we can do with this potion. He wants us to give it to Nepheli, but we could also give it to the Dung Eater, or we can turn it into Gideon, who is Nepheli's adoptive father. So after talking to Nepheli in the Albinauric village and killing the boss there, if you come to the Round Table Hold, you'll find her down in the bottom section of it. And, she's in despair, she's all sad. So after you talk to her, you go talk to Gideon and tell him about her despair. And then you can tell him about the potion, and you can bring it over to Nepheli and hand it to her after that. So you have the option to give her the potion now, Alternatively, you can hand it over to Gideon, so he knows Seluvis. They used to work together at some point or something, I don't know. But anyway, you can just hand the potion to Gideon, and he'll get rid of it, and Seluvis will be none the wiser, because Seluvis, like I said, is a dick. And the third option is to give it to the Dung Eater, who you can find in the subterranean shunning grounds over in Lane-Dell. I didn't go through all the effort of coming up to him here, because it's not necessary for the questline, it's just an optional thing. But once you have the ability to talk to him in his cell, you can hand him the potion while he's tied to the chair. If you do his questline, you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I like to give it to Gideon because both the Dung Eater and Nepheli have questlines that have good rewards, so I like to just hand it over to Gideon and not remove them from the game. So now with that done, before we go back to Seluvis, we're going to head down into his secret lab. So like I said, this is the ruins closest to Ranni's Rise. Hit the illusory floor. It's pretty easy to find. If you're a multiplayer, there'll probably be messages next to it. He'll come down here to find his secret BDSM dungeon and find all of his puppets. And you'll see he has a message that says, Seluvis puppet, do not touch. That's not the right wall. I got confused. Pro tip, if you need to find illusory walls, just use Margit's Shackle, and it unveils all the illusory walls in a pretty wide distance around you. And find his secret lab. This body is related to Selen's questline. That's a mild spoiler. Go back to Seluvis and tell him that you handed the potion over to Nepheli. His dialogue will change, but it'll have the same effect no matter who you actually gave the potion to. After that, you can study sorceries with him. He sells a couple decent ones. Carian Phalanx and Carian Retaliation are pretty good. You can ask him about Nepheli if you want. His dialogue changes based on who you gave the potion to, but it doesn't really matter. And then you can ask him about his private lab that we found. And since you helped him give Nepheli the potion, he will allow you to choose a puppet of your own. I suggest you take the Jarwhite one. You can get both of them at one point, but the Jarwhite is more expensive than Fingermaid and Therolina. You can only choose one now, but after this, we will get the ability to purchase more puppets from him, including Nepheli or the Dung Eater, if you gave them the potion. Okay, so now you need to reload the area twice and talk to him both times. So you can do that by either fast traveling away and coming back, or if you don't feel like running back, you can just quit out and then reload the game. And now you'll have the dialogue option, I want a new puppet. He will be willing to sell you a couple puppets, but he will want you to bring him Starlight Shards in exchange. Starlight Shards can be found in a bunch of different spots throughout the game. I didn't really want to go through it because you need like 3 or 2 for them. Yeah, so Therolina needs 2, the Jarwhite needs 3. So there's a bunch of different spots where you can find them. You can look them up on a map or something. They're not hard to find. After you buy the other puppet from Seluvis, you'll now have the option to ask him about his scheme. He'll tell you about how he wants to turn Ranni into a puppet, and how he needs a special Starlight Shards called the Amber Starlight Shards in order to do so. So of course I'm going to show you where to find the Amber Starlight Shards, but there is a map in-game you can find. So as you saw where the Manor upper level side of Grace is, you can find a scarab up here on the cliff. You can drop down onto this building. This is a no torrent zone, so you'll have to walk on foot, but that's fine. Just walk off the ledges so you don't go too far and fall to your death. And then you can drop down this hole here and talk to Pidia, who is Seluvis's servant. And you'll see he sells a bunch of useful stuff, including Ritual Pot, Celestial Dew, which you may need if you go all the way with Seluvis's questline, which we'll talk about later, and the Weathered Map. If you can decipher how to read this map, then you are a 200 IQ player, because I have absolutely no clue how to actually read this map. I can't even see this shit. But getting the Amber Starlight is actually really easy. It requires us to go up to the Altus Plateau. So first I go to Fort Haight and grab the Dectus Medallion here. And then after that, I head over to Fort Faroth and Grail's Dragon Barrow. So if you go to the Third Church of America north of Fort Haight, you can see there's the Mistwood outskirts. North of Fort Haight, behind it, in the pond, there's a waygate. That waygate teleports you over to the Bestial Sanctum. And then from the Bestial Sanctum, you just follow the road to the south, over the bridge. On that bridge, there's a dragon that'll attack you, but you can just run past him. And then after that, you'll find the Minor Erd Tree. Behind the Minor Erd Tree, by the cliff, there's a spirit spring that you can jump up on Torrent, and that'll take you up to this higher level of the cliff, and now you're at Fort Faroth. And then inside Fort Faroth, you can just run past all the enemies, climb up the ladder, and grab the second half of the Dectus Medallion out of the chest at the top of the ladder. So now with both halves of the Dectus Medallion, we can use the Grand Lift of Dectus at the north end of Loretta of the Lakes. There's an overlay on the screen with some text and a map if you want to see how to get to the Grand Lift of Dectus. But once you come up to the Altus Highway, you'll see over here is the Altus Highway Junction Site of Grace. Just up the road that way is where you can find the map for this area. Once you have that, you'll see to the northeast of the Altus Highway Junction, there's this little road that leads up into this little hidden valley, canyon, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to go and check that out. So this is called St. Trina's Hideaway. It's got a bunch of land octopi in here if you want to farm them. And then these sacramental buds don't respawn, so this is a good place to gather them. And then underneath the statue of, I believe that's St. Trina and Melania. St. Trina is Mikola. You will find the Amber Starlight. Bring that back to Seluvis and give it to him. Talk to him after giving him the Amber Starlight, and he'll give you the Magic Scorpion Charm. So that's the reward for Seluvis' quest. There is another part after this, but it's optional, and technically it's bad, though there's no permanent effect, which I'll talk about afterwards. But anyway, so reload the area, which I did by quitting out and loading back into the save. Talk to Seluvis again, and he gives you the Amber Draught, and he'll tell you to go and bring it over to Ranni and to feed it to her while she's asleep. So that's what we're going to do. Again, this is optional, so you don't have to do this. So go up to Ranni's Rise. If you interact with her, you'll have the Administer Draft option, so hit yes.
This is a most unpleasant
She says, "Who the fuck do you think you are?"
Saturn, led astray by didst thou think be gone? I won't have another.
Now she tells you that you're stinky and to get away from her. If you keep talking to her, she'll smite you.
Enough of thy unbearable breath.
You know, it's pretty mean that she says my breath is stinky. But anyway, so when you come back, she'll be gone, and you can't progress your quest line now. So, like I said, that's technically bad. But you'll see here, if we go over to the Church of Vows, we can ask for absolution using that Celestial Dew we picked up from Pidia earlier. Now, there's also Celestial Dew at the Church of Vows, so you don't have to get it from Pidia. But while you were there, it's good to get it. So anyway, to get to the Church of Vows, I just like to go to the eastern end of the lakes. You'll see, I'm at the Carian Study Hall. It's not actually part of Ranni's quest, technically, but, you know, it's just where I went. You'll see there's the Eastern Lake Shore Site of Grace, I believe it's called. It's a big entrance that leads you up to this dry area, and then you just head north. You pass by this Fire Monk camp. That was the Eastern Tableland Site of Grace, and then you just head northwest from that, and it takes you up to the Church of Vows. There's a Grace here. Inside the Church of Vows, you'll find the Turtle Pope. You can talk to him if you want, but it's not necessary for absolution. Inside that chest, there's a Celestial Dew if you need one. And then you can come over and use the Celestial Dew at this statue in order to receive absolution. And now, if you go back to Ranni, you'll see that she's back, and we're in her good graces again, so we can talk to her. And you'll also find that alongside you, she also smited Seluvis. So you can get his bell bearing from him and still buy his stuff, but he's dead now. So when we talked to Blaidd's hologram in Ranni's Rise, he told us that he's going to head down the Schiefer River Well in the Mistwood, which is where I just showed you. It's right next to the Minor Erd Tree in the Mistwood at the eastern end of Limgrave. He's going to go down to the Schiefer River Well and try to find a way up to the Eternal City of Nokron. So this part is technically optional, but we can talk to Blaidd here. If you come down here, that corpse has the map on it, so make sure you grab that so you have the map of the Schiefer River. And if you come up underneath this big-ass bridge, you can find Blaidd and talk to him. He'll tell you that he has absolutely no clue how to get up to Nokron, and that we should go talk to Seluvis and ask him about it. Now, if you did Seluvis' questline to its final completion and gave Ranni the Amber Draught, Seluvis is dead, and you can't talk to him. So since I did that, I can't show you Seluvis' dialogue here, but if you go back and talk to him, you'll see he's dead, and you can collect his gear and his bell bearing if he's dead. But if you come back and talk to him, he'll tell you that you need to kill Radahn in order to unlock Ranni's fate. So either talking to Seluvis about Radahn or resting at a site of grace in the Altus Plateau will initiate the Radahn Festival in Redmane Castle. Now, if you need help getting here or fighting Radahn, I have a whole video about that, so I will put that down in the description, and you can follow that if you need help. Once Radahn is dead, there will be a cutscene showing a shooting star falling to the earth. That landed somewhere in the Mistwood. And so if you check your map, you'll see a big red marker showing where it landed, and so that's where we need to go. You can also talk to Blaidd here on the battlefield, and he'll tell you that he'll meet you at Nokron to retrieve the Fingerslayer blade for Ranni. So now we're going to head over to the Mistwood, and we're going to go to the Starfall crater to get down to the Eternal City of Nokron. Going down into the crater is pretty simple, so just be careful not to accidentally fall to your death in the middle of the crater. And once you're in Nokron, it's a linear path, so it should be pretty easy to get past all the enemies and stuff that are there. Once you come to the boss room, we're going to fight the Mimic tier here. So what I suggest doing is equipping that Magic Scorpion Charm we got before, which increases the damage taken, and remove all of your weapons, talismans, and items so that the Mimic tier, which will mimic you when it spawns, is completely naked and is just wearing a talisman that makes it take more damage. As you can see, right? And so, for me, I always just like to use Shield Crash and kill it, but I mean, you're fighting an enemy that's using fists and does 2 damage per hit, so you shouldn't have a hard time killing this thing with any weapon if you use this strategy. Afterwards, head across the big-ass bridge and head west at the end of it. You'll come past that singing shaman that you heard there, and then you'll be in the actual Eternal City of Nokron. Again, this one's also pretty linear, so it's really easy to get through it. And then once you come to the very end area called Night's Sacred Ground, there's a whole bunch of silver tiers here. That last one turns into a troll, so be careful. You can open up this chest and grab the Fingerslayer blade. In the event that you come here and you haven't actually started Ranni's questline, which is possible, it won't let you actually open the chest, so you need to have started Ranni's questline in order to get that. So you'll probably have noticed that Blaidd didn't meet us in Nokron, so if we come and talk to E.G., he'll tell us that Blaidd has been given an important task with great urgency, which doesn't seem to make much sense because Ranni's asleep, and E.G. doesn't hold command over Blaidd or anything like that, so where's Blaidd? If we head back to the Forlorn Hound Everjail, where we killed Darriwil in the beginning, we'll find that Blaidd is imprisoned here now. He'll tell you that E.G. imprisoned him here because Blaidd is going to end up bringing bail to Ranni, which means that he's going to screw her over, essentially. So if you let him out, which is optional, you can talk to him. This interaction doesn't actually change anything in the quest, but it gives you the option to talk to E.G. and ask him why he's in the Everjail. Whether or not you let Blaidd out of the Everjail and talk to E.G., you can come back to Ranni and give her the Fingerslayer blade. As your reward, she'll give you the Carian inverted statue, which you can use at the Carian study hall, and after you reload the area, you will see that she has left, and now there is a site of grace here, and it points you in the direction of Renna's Rise to the north. So now Renna's Rise is open, there's no seal here, and that chest is Ranni's outfit, if you want that. And then at the top of the rise, we'll find a waygate that takes us to Ainsel River Main. Once you get here, you'll see a couple coffins, and one of them has the item for miniature Ranni in it, so you can put her in a jar if you want, or you can come and sit at the Site of Grace and talk to her. You have to talk to her 3 times before she actually answers you, but she essentially tells you that you need to bring her through the Ainsel River to where she needs to go, so that's what we're going to do. There's going to be a couple Sites of Grace along the way, and you can talk to her at those Sites of Grace. I didn't do that in this video, but keep that in mind. The first thing we encounter in the Ainsel River is the Old Palace Ruins, and there's this juvenile Astel. I went around the right side to get past it, but you should probably go around the left side because there's more cover. In this room with the ants, you're supposed to keep following the river, but if you go down the side path, that takes you to an area where you can get a weapon called the Wing of Astel, which is a very nice curved sword. But when you proceed down the river, you'll come out here to the Eternal City of Nokstella. So you can go up into Nokstella and explore up there. There's a bunch of stuff to grab and a bunch of things to kill, but it's not necessary for the quest, so I like to just run on this bottom area directly to the elevator. There's a Site of Grace at the bottom of the elevator. Make sure you grab it because you have to kill this baleful shadow. So this thing is essentially Blaidd, though this isn't actually Blaidd. It's a different shadow that was sent by the Two Fingers to kill Ranni. I'm getting my ass kicked a little bit here because I don't think I have my pay upgraded. You should probably have like plus 15 to plus 18 weapons for this area. I think I have this at like plus 12. And I'm also on New Game plus 2, so he has a lot more health and he hits a lot harder. But his moveset is pretty simple. Just dodge when he attacks, and if you hit him with Impaling Thrust or another high poise damage Ash of War, it's pretty easy to stance break him. I didn't want to do a full boss fight guide here because I didn't want this video to be 3 hours long. But once you finish killing him, Ranni will tell you thanks and she'll leave. And once she does leave, she will give you the discarded palace key, so we're going to need that in a little bit. head down the elevator to the Lake of Rot. Obviously, this is an enormous lake that gives you Scarlet Rot, so we want something to let us deal with the Scarlet Rot. Now, you could make preserving boluses to cure Scarlet Rot, but the problem with those is that they require sacramental buds to craft, and sacramental bud plants don't respawn, so they're a bitch to get. So instead, I headed back to the Church of Vows. This is on the east side of Liurnia, if you didn't come here earlier in the video. In the nearby Fire Monk camp, you can grab the Flame Cleanse Me incantation. That requires 12 faith to use, so unless you're the prisoner, any character can use the 2 Fingers heirloom to raise their faith by 5 and be able to cast it. So to get the 2 Fingers heirloom, you head over to the Purified Ruins. I just showed it on the map, it's pretty easy to find. In this cellar that's covered up by a bunch of wood, come down, open the door. In the chest is the talisman. That other item is for a different quest that I'm not worried about right now, but here's the 2 Fingers heirloom. So once you meet the 12 faith requirement, be it by using the heirloom or just leveling up your faith to 12, we're going to head down to the Lake of Rot. Make sure you equip the spell by memorizing it at a site of grace, Flame Cleanse Me. And if you have them, you can use things like Immunizing Cured Meat to increase your immunity and thus your rot resistance. Just cast Flame Cleanse Me or use a bolus afterwards to bring it down to 0, and now you can run across the rot for a significantly longer period of time without actually getting rotted. You'll see these obelisks that have big pressure plates next to them, and when you step on them, it raises some ruins so you can run further without going through the rot. So make sure you activate these along the way. If you have the health for it, you can actually just run straight across this and just use Flame Cleanse Me to cure yourself a couple times and heal a couple times so you don't die from the rot. You don't actually have to do all the pressure plates in order to get to the end of the Lake of Rot, but you're probably going to want to. Also, you may notice that big-ass Dragonkin soldier off in the distance. That's a boss, and I believe he drops a pretty cool weapon when he dies. You might want to fight him, but you don't want to be in the rot while you're doing it. So if you see that obelisk off in the distance, there's a single platform in between you and the obelisk, so start at that platform, cleanse yourself and heal yourself, and then run to the obelisk without getting too close to the Dragonkin. And when you activate that pressure plate, it'll raise a couple platforms around the Dragonkin, and you'll have a dry area where you can fight him. But getting back on track, if we've activated all of the other platforms, then when we activate the final one, it'll raise this big-ass ruin. And so from up here, instead of just jumping straight down into the rot and dying, there's a little path there that you can go down with a ladder to get back up here if you need to. There's an Alabaster Lord up here, and he drops, I think, his sword. And if you saw my short about it, it's a pretty solid weapon. But he kicked my ass. There's also, I think, a Somber Smithing Stone 7 up there that you're going to want to grab, which you can use to upgrade your somber weapons, obviously. However, coming up here and killing him isn't necessary, so you don't have to if you don't want to. I believe that pillar on the right is where the Somber Stone is, if you want to go grab that. So to get down from here a bit more easily, I like to come over to this little rocky area next to the ladder. And so you're going to need to do a sprint jump here. So if you want to start sprinting, you can pause the game and then hold down B, and that'll close the menu, and if you keep holding B, you'll be sprinting. So you see, if you just tap B to start sprinting while you're standing still, then it makes you do a back step, and you don't want to do that because you might like jump off a ledge or something. So pause the game and hold down B after exiting the menu, and that'll make you be sprinting. You can also jump and just start holding down B while you're in midair, and it has the same effect. Anyway, so jump to this corner, and then I went too fast around this. If you go slower, it's easier to stay on it, but you can get to this corner here and then have a shorter run so you don't get Scarlet Rotted. And I show that strat specifically because, as you'll see from these bloodstains here in a second, it's really tragic but also really funny. People die just before this site of grace all the time from the rot, and it's funny as hell, especially this one. This guy, instead of just going to the grace, decided to try to cleanse himself 2 feet away from it. Like, you should have just activated the grace, dummy. So anyway, as you might have gathered from the title, this is also going to be a guide on how to kill Astel easily. So right before the coffin that takes you down to him, you can open this chest and grab the Scorpion Stinger. You can also go back to the Round Table Hold, talk to Corin, and you can buy magic fortification from him. I think it only has a 10 faith requirement, and it gives you 30% magic resistance. So that's good because Astel does a lot of magic damage. If you have it, Barrier of Gold is better. It gives you 60%, I believe. And then in the Wondrous Physic, we're going to use the Opaline Heart tier, which I'll show you how to get in a second. And we're also going to use the Green Burst Crystal tier for the stamina regen. Though you can use any tier you want, but I recommend the Opaline one at least. The Opaline Heart tier increases all of your damage resistances by, I want to say, 20% for 3 minutes. So we can get that from the Minor Erdtree and the Dragon Barrow. So you have to kill the Putrid Avatar that's here, and it's pretty tough. It's weak to fire and to strike damage. So I recommend you use something like a Great Hammer with a Fire Infusion or Fire Grease. You can also cheese it in a bunch of different ways if you want. For example, like, I don't know if you want to consider this cheese or not, but if you're on Torrent, you can just throw fire pots at it and then run away, and it can never catch you. And like, if you really need to, you can just run away from the fight entirely until it loses aggro, and then let it go back to its neutral state and come back and start hitting it again. It'll still be at low health as long as you didn't rest at a Site of Grace. So, you know, that's an option if you're having trouble fighting it. I definitely recommend using a Great Hammer, or at least a regular hammer. Oh, here, there's Guardians down this path this way, so be careful of them because they're pretty tough too. I ended up dying here because of that fucking Guardian. But anyway, so I recommend using a long strike weapon like a Great Hammer or a regular hammer, because they'll do a lot of damage to this thing. It also helps a lot if you have something like Boiled Crab and the Dragon Crest Shield Talisman. Just makes it a lot easier to survive its attacks because all it does is mostly physical damage, and I think Golden Land does holy damage. Its main thing that'll probably get you is its Atomic Ass Blast. So the way you dodge this, it jumps up, then it has a couple frames where it falls slowly, and then it shoots down at the ground. So in those couple frames that it starts falling slowly, that's when you want to hit dodge. And make sure you dodge to the side of it. You don't want to dodge backwards or forwards. You want to dodge around it. And I like to do 2 dodges to make sure I get out of the pile of rot that it leaves afterwards. Because it kind of like slightly extends to the side of it a little bit. So I like to do 2 dodges to get further behind it to make sure it's not going to hit me. So here it is again. It starts falling slowly. I dodge twice to the side, make sure I'm not within the rot. Sometimes you can get it to just keep doing that over and over again, and it makes it really easy to just keep attacking it. I also recommend only do 1 attack in between its attacks. You don't want to mash R1 or try to mash Ash of War or something unless you're at a distance. I think the maximum length combo that it does is like 3 hits long, and it'll do the full combo if you stay next to it, like for example if you're mashing R1. So only hit it once and then prepare to dodge again. Just be patient, go slow, and these things are really easy to kill. They move slowly, their attacks are really easily choreographed, and I'll show you Golden Land and how to dodge that in a second. So after I killed the one in the Dragon Barrow to get the Opaline Heart tier, I then came over to the one in Caelid to get the Green Burst Crystal tier for the stamina regen. Now, I recommend you actually do these in reverse order, so do this one first, and then go to the Dragon Barrow one, because this one also drops the Flame Shrouding Crystal tier, which increases your fire damage, and obviously that's good against an enemy that's already weak to fire. And having that will make killing the Dragon Barrow one a lot easier, because that's the harder of the 2. Anyway, this is the same thing, obviously. This one just has less health and doesn't hit as hard, so, you know, this one's better training than the Dragon Barrow one. So I mentioned earlier I'd show you how to deal with Golden Land, which it's about to do. So it lifts its weapon upside down and then slams it into the ground. So you'll see, this is why you should only do 1 attack in between attacks, because you have a lot of time to react to this if you aren't recovering from a weapon swing, right? So you saw it flips its staff upside down and then winds back really hard and then slams it into the ground. So once it starts winding back, I like to dodge twice just to make sure I dodge both the staff and the explosion. And then you can just run away and run perpendicular to the avatar, right? So if you stay locked onto it, you can run in like a circle around it. If you run straight backwards, then you'll get hit by all the Golden Land bullets. So you want to run in a circle so that they hit where you were instead of where you are. And you also have to keep an eye out for the avatar because it'll run after you and try to melee you. Once you get used to it, just make sure you don't get stuck on any like objects, and you shouldn't have too much trouble. So it did it again here, and let's watch that in slow motion again. So I do the Impaling Thrust as it starts winding up, and so I couldn't have seen that coming, but if I had started mashing R1 after doing the Impaling Thrust, then I wouldn't have been able to dodge. So only do one attack at a time. So I dodged twice in a row to dodge the staff and then the explosion, and then I like to unlock from it so I can see where I'm going, but you see I'm running in like a circle to the side of the avatar. You don't want to run directly away from it. All the bullets are landing behind me because I'm running sideways, and then since I kept an eye on the avatar, I can dodge its melee that it's probably going to come after me with. Other than that, it has really slow and easy to see attacks, so as long as you stay patient and only attack once at a time, you shouldn't have too much trouble with these things. After that, just to really go overkill with the magic resistance, I decided to go get the Spelldrake Talisman +1 from Celia, Town of Sorcery. So from Fort Faroth, we're going to head to the northwest, and you'll see the gigantic skull, and next to it is a spirit spring you can jump down, and then you'll see the Church of the Plague. We're going to run past that. There is a Site of Grace in the church. There's also Millicent you can talk to for her quest, and there is a Sacred Tear you can grab to upgrade your flasks if you don't already have it. But if you come over to the cliff, you'll see this tree. From the tree, you can jump down to the top roof of the windmill, and then you can just jump down to the bottom roof. Use your double jumps to make sure you don't fall to your death. Then from the bottom roof, you can jump down to ground level. From the windmill, you'll see the nearby tower that has a ladder on it. I like to just jump up this roof here as a shortcut with Torrent. It saves me having to run across the entire town to come here. You probably want to kill all the sorcerers first before you do this, because you saw they were shooting at me. It actually took me a couple of tries to do that. But activate the brazier at the top of that, and then that unlocks the seal over by this chest across the staircase, and you can grab the Spelldrake Talisman +1. Now, since Astel is so huge and can be kind of hard to hit sometimes if you have a short weapon, I like to use the lance to kill him, so that's what we're going to do. And to complement the lance, we're going to come to the Lakeside Crystal Cave and grab the Spear Talisman. The Spear Talisman is located in a chest on the top level of the cave. You don't have to fight the boss here or anything. I like to just run past all the demi-humans across the way. They can swarm you, so be careful if you don't want to kill them. But you can head through this tunnel, and then in this little grotto, there's a chest. And inside the chest is the Spear Talisman. Up next, we're going to the War Master's Shack, where we're going to grab the Golden Vow Ash of War and the Lance Great Spear. So from the War Master's Shack, head up onto this little cliff. On that ruins is where the lance is, and the Golden Vow Ash of War is on the cliff. So you just come up this way, jump up here. The knight over here, when you kill him, he drops Golden Vow. It's an Ash of War, and you can put it on any weapon, so it doesn't have any faith requirement or anything like that. And then drop onto this ruin over here, and on this corpse in the corner, you will get the Lance Great Spear. So to recap the things that we've prepared to fight Astel, we're going to use the Scorpion Stinger Dagger to inflict Scarlet Rot on him. He's not particularly weak to Rot. It'll take about 10 to 15 hits to proc it on him, depending on how often you can attack him. But Scarlet Rot does a lot of damage, and it's nice to have because he has attacks where he teleports away from you, and so the Rot will do damage over time even when he runs away from you. We're using the Lance Great Spear with Impaling Thrust on it because he gets great range and it does a lot of poise damage when you use Impaling Thrust. So it should be able to break his stance in about 4 hits. For me, it's going to take longer because I'm in New Game +2, and so he takes less poise damage, but for you, it should take about 4 hits as long as you keep up the pressure. We're using Golden Vow Ash of War. You can put that on any weapon. I chose a dagger because it's light and I have 100 of them. Golden Vow just gives you a buff for about 40 seconds that makes you do more damage and take less damage. We're using the Spelldrake Talisman +1 and the Spear Talisman. The Spelldrake Talisman will make us take less damage from Astel's magic attacks, which he has a lot of, and the Spear Talisman will make our Great Lance do more damage to him when he is doing an attack animation. And then you can use whatever talismans you want. I chose the Green Turtle Talisman and Millicent's Prosthesis because they're just good talismans to have. In our Wondrous Physic, I'm using the Opaline Heart tier for the magic resistance, and I also use the Green Burst Crystal tier because it gives us a bunch of stamina regen. Again, you can use whatever tiers you want, but I definitely recommend at least the Opaline tier. And I'm using Magic Fortification to again increase my magic resistance. Alternatively, you could use something like a Spellproof Dried Liver, but you should be aware that Magic Fortification and Spellproof Dried Liver or other spells do not stack, so make sure you only use one defensive buff. They do stack with Golden Vow, though. So obviously, in order to get down to Astel, from the Grand Cloister, Site of Grace after the Lake of Rot, You follow the rot waterfall, and you take the coffin down. There's a short cutscene, and it brings you down to this cave. Before you enter the arena, make sure you cast your buffs. So I drink the Wondrous Physic, then I use Golden Vow, then I cast Magic Fortification. When you walk in, he will almost always do his railgun immediately. I like to dodge this using a sound cue, so first I'm going to show you it in slow motion, and then I'll show you it in fast motion again, and shut up so that you can hear it. If you need a visual cue, you saw he lifted up his tail a bit right before he fired, so maybe you can use that, but like I said, I prefer this audio cue. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying. I don't really know how to describe that one, but once it gets to a certain point of the sound of it charging up, that's when I hit dodge, and it works every time. So the first thing I'm going to do upon closing the gap is I'm going to attack him with the Scorpion Stinger in an effort to proc Scarlet Rock on him. So he has 552 rot resist, and I think the Stinger does 50 on hit. So it should take about 11 to 12 hits, but because he teleports away, his rot... Hopefully you heard that audio cue again. Please feel free to, rewind that if you need to. But it should take about 12 or so hits to proc the rot, but it'll take more because when he moves away from you and you stop attacking him, the rot buildup starts going down. So I messed up this dodge here, but there is a way to dodge this attack, and I'll talk about that later when I do successfully dodge it. When he does this, he rears up and he does his Waves of Darkness attack. You just gotta run away. I'm fairly certain you can't dodge that, so I don't try to. When he does that attack where he comes over you and swipes at you, that's essentially a free combo that you can get on him, just dodge forward. When he does this move where he teleports away from you, you see he winds his hands back, right? And then he starts bringing them forward to clap. When he starts moving them forward, that's when you gotta hit dodge, when he starts bringing them together to clap. And after he teleports, make sure you keep an eye above you, because he might come down for his grab attack, which I believe I will show you how to dodge later on in this fight. So in a second, you're going to see him do like a half body Waves of Darkness. Instead of rearing up with both sides of his body, he uses one half of his body. I'm pretty confident the only way to actually dodge that is to run away from it. You see, I get hit by it because I'm mashing R1 just to try to proc the rod as fast as I can, and so I was in an attack animation and I couldn't stop and sprint away. So only hit him once or twice and then let him make a move so that you can dodge it consistently. Because if you just mash R1, it's the same thing with any boss, any enemy. If you mash R1, you're gonna get hit a lot because you won't be able to dodge. Here he does a one-handed Nebula, so when you see him winding up his arm to do that, you need to dodge backwards. If you dodge forward or to the side, you're going to get hit by either the Nebula itself or by his arm, so you have to dodge backwards to avoid that. See, he did another one there, and I got hit by the arm because I dodged forward. So if you keep an eye on his health bar, the damage numbers, you'll see that I have procced the Scarlet Rot, so I'm going to switch over to the Lance now. Here's his Death from Above attack. So I'm going to show this in slow motion. Listen to the sound. So you see the second effect where he teleported out of the sky? It makes a sound. So if you hear two of his teleport sounds in a row, like immediately one after the other, that means this is coming. So obviously I played that in regular speed again. When you hear the nails on chalkboard twice in a row, that means he's coming for the Death from Above. Now, you have to figure out which direction he's coming from, so you gotta think fast, and then I like to dodge toward his head. If you dodge toward his arms, sometimes you'll get grabbed by the elbows, because the hitbox is a little fucked up, so keep that in mind. Here's the railgun again. As it's reaching like the apex of its charging up sound, that's when I hit dodge. Now watch this. You see, I hit him once, and then I didn't immediately attack again, so I was able to dodge away from the Waves of Darkness that he did. So, just be patient with your attacks. So I'm focusing on hitting him with the Lance, obviously, and I'm hitting him with Impaling Thrust. So here he does his ground grab attack. You'll see, he opens up his mandibles all the way, and then he pulls his body back, right? And then he lunges forward. So, as he's coming towards the end of pulling his body back, that's when I like to dodge. And then now I get the Poise Break. I probably should have gone for a Riposte. I would have gotten way more damage, but I thought I might be able to get a Charge R2 in before I did it. So now he's at half health, and he's going to do his Meteor attack. Dodging this is really easy. So you'll see, I stand still, and I just wait. Once the portals start opening up, which happens right here, once the portals start opening up, run either left or right and just sprint across the arena. You don't need to dodge, you don't need to block, you don't need to do anything else. You see the meteors, it locks onto your current position, and it doesn't like home in on you. It just spawns somewhere and then starts going towards where you were. So if you're sprinting to the side, it'll hit behind you instead of hitting you. It only launches 3 meteors at you, the rest of them just hit in random spots around the arena, and you don't move fast enough to be able to actually get hit by them. Here he did his tail jackhammer, so if you watch it, you'll see it hovers over you for a second or two, and then it comes onto your right side. And it hangs out there for a little bit, and then it like pulls up and starts coming down. So right before it pulls up, or just as it pulls up, that's when you dodge forward, and if you're next to his head, then it won't be able to hit you. So here I'm going to get hit by his half Waves of Darkness. You see, I dodged the first two, but then I couldn't dodge the third one. I'm pretty confident that was because of bad positioning on my part. So I go 1, I go 2, and then I'm like recovering from the roll as the third one happens. So you can't dodge all 3 of them. I haven't properly tested this, but I'm pretty sure that, like, so he did it with his left hand, so for me that's on my right facing towards him. I'm pretty sure if I had gone to the left, I would have been able to do 2 dodges and then sprint away like you're supposed to. And obviously if he does it with his right hand, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to run to the right. Something I haven't pointed out yet is whenever he moves away from me, if he like jumps over me or does an attack that makes him move away from me or something, I hit him with fan daggers to make sure his poise doesn't regenerate. And so that's how I'm able to get stance breaks. Like right here, he dashed backwards, so I hit him with a couple fan daggers just to make sure his poise health doesn't regenerate. It takes a couple seconds in between your hits for his poise health to start regenerating. So if you hit him with fan daggers, it doesn't have time to start regenerating. Okay, so I mentioned this attack earlier. I didn't get a fully successful dodge here, but you can dodge it 100% with slightly better timing. I'm going to play this clip in slow motion again, but you see he starts chomping his mandibles. He does it 4 times, and then on the 5th, that's when the hitbox happens. So I think I did it slightly too early there. The way I usually time my dodge is I'll count the first 4 chomps, and then right before he does the 5th one, he starts like looking upwards and rearing his head up, and then he launches his head upwards. That's when you're supposed to hit dodge, as he starts going up. So here, let's count now. So you see the electricity. 1, 2, 3, 4. He opens his mouth, rears his head back. He turns and starts looking upwards. And then as he starts going up, that's when you dodge. I did it too early there. And then if you successfully dodge the first part of the attack, you have to dodge when he comes down. When he starts moving his hands down to slam the ground, right there. We're going to watch that again. Hang on. I'll have better timing when I say right there. Right here. You saw he like puts his hands like flat down like he's going to slap the ground. That's when you dodge, is when his hands are flat right before they start coming down. And then, of course, I hit him with another Impaling Thrust. I hit him with the Scorpion Stinger a few times to try to proc the rod. I'm not sure if I'm successful here. Then he charges up a teleport again, and you see he pulls his hands back. He starts moving them forward. When he starts moving them forward for the clap, that's when I dodge. I think he's going to do Meteorite again. Yeah. So again, consistently dodge it. Just sprint to the side.
Instead of shooting where I was, you should have shot him where I was going to be.
Here he's going to do a half-body Waves of Darkness again. I tried mixing up the rolling pattern to see what would happen, but you're coming out of the roll for the second one when the third Waves of Darkness hits you, so there's just no way to be rolling during that. And there you saw I got hit by a Nebula. Whenever he does Nebula, you gotta dodge backwards because his arms have hitboxes. Here he does a full body Waves of Darkness. I just run away from it when I see him start doing it. Remember that the full body one gets 4 waves instead of just 3, so keep that in mind. And then I finally hit him with another impaling thrust, and kill him. And now he's dead. So here you saw I tried to quit out so that I could come back and kill him with a different method, like in my Malekith video, but he stayed dead after I quit out, so that didn't pan out. Anyway, so after you activate the Site of Grace in his arena, you'll see that there's a sealed cave that we can't go into. So you'll remember we got the discarded palace key from Ranni after we killed the Baleful Shadow right before the Lake of Rot. So we need to go to the Ray of the Caria Grand Library to open the chest using that key. In order to do that, you need to kill Renala. This video is already an hour long, and I didn't want to do a whole guide for Renala and make this video be another hour long. But she's pretty easy, especially if you've already killed Astel. Just use magic resistance and hit her with impaling thrusts. But anyway, like I said, in the library there's a chest. We use the discarded palace key to open that, and that gives us the Dark Moon Ring. With that in our inventory, the seal in Astel's arena is broken, and we can take the elevator up to the Moonlight Altar. From the elevator, you see the enormous cathedral. We're just going to run up to that. Ranni's dragon will spawn, but you don't have to kill her. You can just run past it. If you need Starlight Shards for whatever reason, there's a whole bunch of Starlight Shards here. Grab the Site of Grace, and then we're going to drop down into this hole here. So if you drop all the way to the bottom of this first, you might take some damage or possibly die. So watch your step when you do that. But we come down here and we find Ranni. She has used the Finger Slayer Blade to kill her 2 fingers that were going to control her as an Empyrean or something like that. So talk to her, give her the ring, talk to her again, she will leave, and she will leave behind the Dark Moon Greatsword after a couple seconds, so make sure you stick around to grab that. So that concludes Ranni's actual quest line, but there's still a couple extra things we can do. So we can go and talk to Iji. He comments about how Ranni has left for her business and whatever. And then if we head over to Ranni's Rise, just outside we'll find Blaidd. He's gone insane because the 2 fingers are trying to mind control him to make him kill Ranni, and he's resisting it, but he's hostile. So he's essentially the same as the Baleful Shadow that we killed before, though he does have a couple extra moves. Like you saw, he jumps up and he does an explosion with his Royal Greatsword. So he's not that hard. I used the Answer Rapier on him just to hit him with Rot and Bleed. Like I said, I didn't want this video to be 3 hours long, so this isn't a full guide for him. But if you have decently upgraded weapons, he shouldn't be too hard. Once you kill him, he drops his armor and the greatsword. With Blaidd dead, we can now report his death to Iji.
How did he break flow? Blaidd became a curse. I made a grave. I'll catch up when I do.
Iji is regretful over not trusting Blaidd. And I think you might be able to rest at the Site of Grace, but I just fast traveled back to the Site of Grace to reload the area, and you'll see that Iji has been killed evidently by Black Knife assassins, though he's burning with Black Flame when the Black Knife assassins use Red Flame. Also on his anvil, you'll find his Spell Bearing and his Mirror Helm, which is a decent helm and provides pretty good magic resistance, and that concludes everything to do with Ranni's questline. I hope you found that helpful, or at least interesting. Like I said, I didn't want to make this video 3 hours long, so I didn't do boss guides for all of the bosses that you had to fight along the way. I do have footage for a Renala guide that I am going to be uploading relatively soon, so keep an eye out for that if you want help fighting Renala. But other than that, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll catch you later.